Welcome back to Art with Mrs. Connors. Today we are doing part 3 of our line monster, where we are taking our line design, drawing and painting and transforming it into this really cute and fun monster. But before we do, we are first going to talk about shapes. Now for shapes, we break down shapes into two different categories: geometric shapes and organic shapes. So geometric shapes are what you think of when you typically think about a shape, such as a circle, a square, a triangle, a rectangle, things like that. Organic shapes are more natural. They may look more like a flower or an apple or a leaf, but they're not exactly a perfect shape. You look at it and you'll say, that kind of looks like a leaf, or it kind of looks like a cloud, or it kind of looks like a fish, but it's not exact. It is not exactly representing that object. It doesn't look easily recognizable as a particular shape. Now, if you remember from our first video, part 1, when we were learning about lines, I talked a little bit about a shape. A shape is when a dot goes for a walk and it comes back to where it started. So it's a line that starts and ends in the same place. So now that I gave you this quick lesson about shape, there are two videos that I want you to go watch. One is Shapes Roll, and that one has a similar vibe as Lines That Wiggle, where it talks about shapes all around you and how you see different shapes in the world you live in. And then the other one is a fun video that I love called Storybots Shapes, and that's going to teach you all about different geometric shapes. Okay, so now you're going to be working on top of a piece of paper. You're going to be using either scrap paper or printer paper, and you are going to be breaking down the design for your monster using various shapes. And you can use both organic and geometric shapes like I am doing, but you want to make sure that your monster is unique. So we're going to be creating two different designs, and you can see that as I'm working, I am changing up my design several times, and I'm kind of thinking through what I'm going to have as the shapes that I put down on my next paper, and then the ones that I'm going to be adding on top of my monster drawing. So now I'm making my second drawing, and it's looking a little bit like it might be a Minecraft character, but I want to make sure that my drawing is unique and does not look identical to something that I could find in a video game. Now I'm going to put a little star next to the one that I like best. So now I'm copying my design on the back of my painted paper, and I'm focusing on just drawing the different shapes that I did when I was coming up with my plan. And you can see here that I'm having to make some adjustments. That is completely okay. You are able to make as many adjustments as you need to. That is why we work with pencils that have erasers, so we can erase our mistakes or our little accidents. So I'm going to, again, be focusing on just using basic shapes, and I'm focusing on just the body because I want to have the hair and clothing different colors. Maybe it'll be different pieces of paper. I'm not going to be focusing on that for this part of the project. And when it comes to our facial features, such as our eyes and our mouth, I'm not going to be focusing on that either because that's going to get added on separate. So now I'm pretty much done with my sketch. It's not identical to the planning drawing that I did, but that's okay. And remember, I'm going to be including things like the hair, the eyes, the horns, the skirt separately. So I'm going to be using different paper and collaging or cutting and gluing it onto this paper. So we're just focusing on the body itself. If you want your horns to be the same painted paper as your body, you can totally add on your horns now, or like me, you can add them on separately. So next, what we're going to be doing is we're erasing any lines that are separating our two shapes. So there's the circle head and the diamond body. I'm erasing the line that is separating those so it becomes a giant shape. Now, if your pencil eraser starts to run low, I like using a block eraser. My favorite are these white ones because they don't leave any marks on your paper. So now I'm going to continue this process and erase any of these lines that are separating my shapes, because by the time that I'm done, I want one giant shape. Now for the next step, I'm going to use a red marker and I'm going to be going over the line that remains, the outline. That is the line that is on the outside of my drawing. I'm going to be tracing over those lines with my red marker. Now, this is a tool that we're using to make sure that we are going to be cutting along the correct lines. This is also helpful for if you forgot to erase any lines, you can see which ones you are missing. And remember, when you're done, you want to hear that snap when you close your marker. Here I have two more examples of projects that I did where I outlined it with the red marker. Now I'm going to very carefully cut along the red line using my scissors, and my helper hand is going to be rotating the paper so my scissors are not bending in weird directions. Notice that I am going slow and taking my time. I'm going to speed this clip up so that way you can see the end results. If your scraps get a little too big, you can always cut them off like I do here in this example right here. See how I'm slowly cutting off this piece because it's starting to get a little too big for me. Then I make sure that I save all of my scraps in a scrap bin, or you can save them in a bag with other scrap pieces of paper to use for future projects. Now again, pay attention as I'm cutting. My helper hand is guiding my paper so my scissors stay in relatively the same direction. Now here at the end, I'm again rotating my paper so my scissors go in the same direction. I have to be very careful because this is a small area and I don't want to cut my fingers. Alrighty, so now we have our monster cut out. Look at how cool he looks. Now your monster might be like this one where it has a piece in the middle that you need to get to. So rather than cutting along one of the other lines, what we are going to do is we are going to fold it in half right at that spot and give it a little teeny tiny snip with the tip of our scissors, because we are going to make a little bird beak for our scissors to go into. So now that our monsters are done, you can see that they look similar because they may have similar designs, but they are both unique. So the next part, we are going to be using some of the scrap paper that I have to add on extra things. So you may want to add on a vest, you may want to add on a bow, you may want to add on a dress. You decide what you want to put on. I'll probably focus on drawing the eyes and mouth first, but you can decide in what order you do everything. Now, just because I have a lot of painted paper from my scrap paper, you don't have to use that. You can use construction paper, you could use scrapbook paper. If you have a mistake that you made on a piece of artwork and you don't want to keep it anymore, you can turn that into scrap paper. So now I'm going to be using this monster and I'm going to draw my eyes. I can decide where my eyes are placed and how many I have. I'm going to have 5 eyes, so I'm going to draw them on the edge of this piece of scrap paper, so I'd still have lots left over for future projects. Now my eyes don't have to be a circle. I could decide to do an oval or maybe something that's more of an almond shape, but it is up to you on how you want your eyes to be. I like mine to be circle because of the fact that I have lots of eyes that I am drawing. Next, I'm going to use my scissors and cut the eyes out, but I'm going to first cut them off of the scrap paper and put my scrap paper away. So this way I have it saved for later. And now I'm going to work very carefully in cutting my eyes apart and then cutting them out. And if you're using big scissors like mine, that might be a little bit of a challenge, so you might want to switch to smaller scissors. So now that my eyes are cut apart, I'm going to be working very carefully to cut my eyes out. I am using my helper hand to rotate because of the fact that this shape is so small and I don't want to accidentally cut my fingers. So here's the first eye, and if it's not perfectly cut out like a perfect circle, that is completely fine because some monsters may have wonky kind of eyes. That is totally fine. I'm going to be saving all of my little scraps because I might want to use them again for future projects. Now that all my eyes are cut out, I'm going to begin gluing my eyes down. So I'm putting my eye onto another piece of paper because I'm going to get glue on it. And when I use my glue stick, I'm just going to crank it up a little bit so that way there's only a small amount of glue above the tube. I'm not going to crank it all the way up because then I can break my glue stick and mess it up. So I'm just doing a little bit of glue, and if it gets stuck, that's okay. I'll put my glue stick down, and then I'm going to stick my eye and give it a little press where I want it to go. And I'm going to repeat this process for all the eyes. Now that I'm all done, I'm going to put my cap on, but before I do, I'm going to crank the glue stick so that way it goes all the way down to the bottom. If there's any glue on the sides, I will wipe it off, and then I'm going to stick my cap on, and I want to press it so that way I hear a little snap. Now I'm not going to worry about the black dots for the eyes just yet. I'll use a marker for that. So for now, I'm going to focus on creating a mouth. Now for my mouth, I'm going to decide what shape it is. I can decide the placement of my mouth. It can be a small mouth. It could be a big mouth. It could be on the face. It could be on the body. It could be on the antennas. I get to decide because I'm the artist. Now I'm going to be working from the edge, especially if I'm using a particular shape like a square or a half circle. So there are different options you can do. You could do a half circle like that one. You could do a rectangle. You could do a triangle, or you could do an oval. You could do a combination of different shapes. Maybe you have two different mouths. One is shaped like an oval, one is shaped like a rectangle. Maybe your mouth is going to be some sort of a wonky shape. It might be an organic shape. You get to decide. Now, I'm going to be working from the edge of my paper, and I think I'm going to go for a triangle. So I'm going to use the edge as the top because that will make my cutting a lot easier. I'm using my pencil to draw the shape first, and then I will cut it out. And notice that I am already getting set by rotating my paper to make my cutting a lot easier. Now that it's cut out, I need to decide on the placement and the direction it's going to go. So now I can decide that it's going to be a triangle pointing down, or maybe it'll be a triangle pointing up. I'm going to try a couple of different options to see which one I like best. And again, when I glue, I'm going to turn my glue stick so it comes up just a little bit above the tube. I don't want a lot, and I'm just going to do a little bit of glue on here before I stick it on. And then I'm going to use my finger and give it a little press so it sticks well. Now that my mouth is placed, I'm going to be using some of that other scrap paper that I have left over from making the eyes to create teeth. So I'm going to be very carefully cutting off the pieces and then gluing them into place on my mouth to make teeth. And just like before, I'm going to give it a little press after gluing so that way it is nice and secure. Then I'm going to use some of my other scrap paper like this yellow to add in accessories such as a bow. So I'm drawing on my shapes. A bow is made out of two triangles and a circle. So I'm doing my shapes right there, very close together, carefully cutting them out. And then I'm going to put them to the side because I need a little bit more paper to be able to glue it onto. So I'm going to wait until I glue my monster onto my black paper. I'm going to try putting it there, but I noticed that it's coming off. So I realized that I need to wait until I glue this onto my black paper. So I'm going to flip it over, put it first on my paper just to make sure it'll fit well. Then I'm just doing a little bit of glue. Notice that I'm doing the glue as kind of a little scribble. If you end up with a little bit of glue slivers on the side, you can just use the glue stick on an angle to wipe it off. On some of the extra pieces, I'm doing a little bit of more glue just because they're a little smaller. I'm going to take my monster, put it onto my black paper, give it a little pat, Then the area that I glued on, I'm going to move off to the side, put my monster face down, and give it a good massage on the back. This way I know that it's nice and stuck onto that black paper. Don't forget to put your name on here so that way you know that this is your monster and not a friend or a sibling's monster. Now that I have a little bit more backing to my monster because it's on the black paper, I can go ahead and glue the bow on. And I didn't have enough glue stick exposed, so I had to crank it up a little bit. I'm going to put that one shape over on one side, and then I'll put the other one on the other side, and it'll make a really cute little bow. Now for the last step, I'm going to use my black marker and draw little dots inside the eyes so that way it makes the little pupil, which is the area that my monster is going to see out of. Look at how cute this is. I'm going to show you my other one as well so that way you can see the difference between the two of them. But before I finish, I need to make sure I clean up after myself. So I'm going to put some of my materials away, such as closing up my glue stick. Make sure you give it a good press, that way you hear that click. Now, looking at my two monsters, they again look similar because I might have done similar designs or I worked with the same technique, but they are both unique and different, which is really, really cool. Now, before we finish, you are going to use a white colored pencil, and on the bottom corner, you can do either the left or the right corner. You're going to put your name, and then on the other side, the other corner, you're going to put the year or the date or maybe how old you were when you created it. This way, when you look back in the future at your project, you can know, oh, that was a really cool project I made when I was 10 years old, when I was in first grade, whatever age you are. Look how cool these are. So just for a review, we went from learning about lines and creating a line design drawing to then painting it and learning all about wax resist and about color. We talked about shape when we were designing our monsters and drew out different shapes to create our monster. You can see the cool designs that showed up and how even when we use white oil pastel, that shows up when we paint over it with watercolors or tempera cakes. Here you can see we created a bunch of different shapes to turn into our monster, and then we traced over the outline and cut along that red outline that we did to turn into our finished product, our monster. So you learned so much when creating this project. I hope you had as much fun as I did with making this, and you join me for more projects in the future. Have a good day.